In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, February 16th, an arrest warrant has been sought by prosecutors for opposition leader Lee Jae-myung over corruption charges during his time in office as mayor of Seongnam City. Meanwhile, relief authorities in Türkiye say rescue operations are now shifting to recovery efforts as South Korea is set to send its second contingent of humanitarian aid tonight. And Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho proposes diversification of export markets and export products to ease Korea's trade deficit amid the global downturn. We begin here on the local political front. Prosecutors are seeking an arrest warrant for Lee Jae-myung, the head of the Democratic Party of Korea, amid allegations of malfeasance. It's the first time in Korea's constitutional history that prosecutors have sought an arrest warrant for a leader of an opposition party. Now, Lee has been accused of having used his term in office as mayor of Seongnam City to grant favors to private partners during the development of the city's Daejangdong district. He reportedly helped them amass some $380 million at the expense of the city government. Allegations also include favors to firms that financially supported Seongnam's football team. Prosecutors now need parliamentary consent for Lee Jae-myung's arrest. The presidential office here has responded to a Bloomberg report about a state dinner invitation by U.S. President Joe Biden to President Yoon Suk-yeol. Addressing members of the media earlier today, the top office claimed, quote, "It believes this is not the official stance of the White House." Now, on this Thursday, Korea time, Bloomberg, citing sources familiar with the matter, reported that the two countries were in talks about a possible state dinner in late April. If the state dinner were to take place, it would be President Biden's second state dinner following his hosting of French President Emmanuel Macron last December. It would also be the first time in 12 years for a South Korean president to attend a state dinner at the White House. Also on the diplomatic front, Foreign Minister Park Jin is on his way to attend the Munich security conference over in Germany. Now, Park is also scheduled to sit down with his Japanese counterpart Yoshimasa Hayashi on Saturday on the sidelines of that security forum. On their agenda is the issue of compensation for Korean victims of wartime forced labor. Meanwhile, before landing in Germany, Park is partaking in a global gathering on artificial intelligence in the military arena over in the Netherlands. UN relief authorities say search and rescue operations are coming to a close in Türkiye, and the task now is to mount an effective humanitarian response to ease the plight of the people left homeless, hungry, vulnerable to waterborne diseases, as well as psychological repercussions. Our Lee Jae reports.
Having survived the massive earthquakes that struck Turkey and Syria, at least 1 million people are currently displaced in Turkey, and millions more are without homes in Syria. According to Reuters, some of those displaced in Turkey are living in temporary shelters. Others are not so lucky, unable to find a space in makeshift shelters. But they all face the risk of deteriorating health due to the cold temperatures and the spread of disease caused by a shortage of clean water.
We lost everything in the second earthquake. Our house is in ruins and is in no condition for us to enter. We tried to put together plastic sheets to create a makeshift tent so the children can take refuge from the wind and the cold. Because we're far away from the city center, we haven't been able to get access to food aid either.
Those with weakened immunity are also being exposed to a variety of infectious diseases, with children particularly vulnerable to waterborne illness. In response, the Turkish government plans to distribute vaccines against tetanus and rabies, while the WHO urgently delivered enough medicine to treat about 400,000 people. Psychological problems are an issue for many survivors too, with many reportedly suffering from PTSD. Field doctors in Turkey have reportedly been treating an increasing number of patients suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and panic attacks, with some ships being turned into makeshift trauma wards.
Now more of the patients are coming with the post-traumatic stress disorder, all the shock that they have gone through during the earthquake, and all whatever they have seen. Because of that, patients are having panic attacks. There's a good number of people who are coming as a panic attack.
Now, the WHO is requesting that the international community donate more funds, as the UN Health Agency says that more than 2.6 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
And speaking about humanitarian assistance, Korea is dispatching its second contingent of relief workers and emergency supplies to Türkiye later on this Thursday evening. Here's our Foreign Ministry correspondent, Bae-eun-ji.
Another relief team, along with more than 50 tons of humanitarian aid, will be sent from South Korea to Türkiye. The South Korean government announced this plan on Wednesday during a meeting led by the country's foreign minister Park Jin.
2 military transport aircraft and a commercial flight will be mobilized to send the team and deliver 55 tons of supplies, including tents and blankets.
The supplies will include more than 1,000 tents, as well as around 3,000 blankets and 2,000 sleeping bags. And the 21-member team, including 10 medical workers, will depart Seoul at 11 p.m. on Thursday. They will be sent to Adana, southern Türkiye. Unlike the first round of relief personnel sent to the region that worked on rescuing survivors, an official from the foreign ministry explained the new team, formed upon Turkey's request, will focus on identifying what's needed to support the recovery efforts. This comes as Turkey has turned its focus on reconstruction and now encourages those in quake-hit areas whose buildings have been deemed safe to return home. Last week, South Korea had sent a 118-member rescue team, search dogs and medical supplies to Antakya, one of the hardest-hit regions in Türkiye. The team, mostly comprised of military personnel and firefighters, rescued a total of 8 survivors. They will wrap up their week-long operation and head back home on Friday. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho has highlighted the importance of broader efforts to diversify export markets, export products, and to ease, that is, Korea's trade deficit. Our ministry correspondent Kim Hyun-sung has more on his remarks.
Ministers in areas related to the economy held an emergency meeting at Seoul government complex on Thursday to address the issues facing the struggling South Korean economy.
Our economy has continued to see falling exports and a trade deficit recently. If we break down the reasons for the trade deficit, most of it comes from energy, semiconductors, and China.
He said trade numbers were dragged down by the high energy costs, a slowdown in demand for semiconductors, and how China's reopening has yet to have a significant impact on the global economy. To address the situation, Chu added that the government will focus on diversifying the market and strengthening other export products so as not to be overly dependent on any one sector. He also urged citizens to join in a collective effort to reduce energy imports by saving energy. Meanwhile, SMEs and Startups Minister Lee Jae-myung unveiled the government's plan for balanced economic prosperity.
The previous plan had 48 key industries in the 14 cities and provinces outside the capital city. We've restructured the business plan by adding 19 new emerging industries and cut down the old ones to 41. So there are a total of 60 industries that the government is keen on fostering.
Regions outside the capital have been facing limited opportunities and a shrinking population. And the aim of this plan is to fulfill President Yoon Suk-yeol's promise to foster a healthy environment for businesses to thrive, which will, in turn, create more job opportunities and improve infrastructure in regions outside of Seoul. Balanced regional development has been an ongoing project for many past governments. This new plan does differ from the past one in some ways.
The plan expands on aerospace technology and has added hydrogen and cybersecurity as new key industries to foster. So it did change a lot from the past 20 years. But what we really need to focus on is changing this into an airtight and realistic plan.
The economic ministries in South Korea are facing a daunting task of boosting the country's economy, which has recently been struggling to gain momentum. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the U.S., beating earlier market predictions, retail sales rose higher in January amid greater consumer spending on cars, furniture and fashion. Our Eun-jin has more on the latest findings.
U.S. retail sales saw the biggest increase in nearly 2 years in January after 2 straight months of decline. The Department of Commerce reported on Wednesday that advanced retail sales for the month increased 3%, higher than the expected 1.9%. American consumers spent more on vehicles, furniture, clothing, and dining out. Motor vehicle and parts dealers saw retail sales increase 5.9%, while sales at service stations remained stable despite a 2.4% increase in gas prices. Home furnishing stores saw a 4.4% rise, online retailers 1.3%, electronics and appliances stores recorded a 3.5% increase, and food services were up 7.2%. No category saw a decline. The underlying trend in consumption is that Americans are indeed spending. On top of climbing credit card debt, the boost in retail sales in January is being driven by two significant factors. The biggest cost of living adjustment since 1981 went into effect in January, meaning Social Security checks increased 8.7% for more than 65 million recipients. Job growth also surged at the start of the year. According to Labor Department data released earlier this month, the unemployment rate reached a 53-year low as employers added more than 500,000 jobs at the beginning of the year. Experts highlight that though consumption is indeed not as weak as December figures might have indicated, it is not yet as strong as the January numbers suggest. Inflation remains persistent, and the fear of a recession is not completely out of the picture, though not imminent. The Fed will continue to move monetary policy as slated, with quarter percentage point interest rate hikes at each of its next two meetings. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
Seoul's defense white paper identifies the Kim Jong-un regime as an enemy given its reckless military provocations and relentless pursuit of nuclear weapons. Our defense ministry correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
North Korea is once again defined as South Korea's enemy in the Yoon Suk-yeol administration's first defense white paper. As anticipated, the Defense Ministry's 2022 white paper revives the line that was removed under the previous Moon Jae-in government, asserting that the North Korean regime and its military are South Korea's enemy. In doing so, the report refers to how the North described the South as a clear enemy in December, and how Pyongyang aims for the communization of the entire Korean peninsula. It also points to the North's continued military provocations and incursions into the South, as well as maritime buffer zones, particularly its violations of the 2018 Inter-Korean Agreement on diffusing tensions across the heavily armed border. According to the white paper, Pyongyang has also continued to produce weapons-grade nuclear materials. The paper also added 7 new models to the list of the North's known projectiles. These include close-range and short-range ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, hypersonics, and the massive Hwasong-17 intercontinental ballistic missile. In light of these threats, Seoul aims to strengthen its 3-axis system, focusing more on the preemptive strikes and retaliatory measures that could take out the North Korean leadership. It also highlights the pivotal role of the South Korea-U.S. alliance, with more detail on implementing Washington's extended deterrence policy that offers security assurance under conventional or nuclear attack. In its bid to strengthen security ties with Washington and Tokyo, Seoul describes Japan as a close neighbour which shares its values, highlighting the need to build futuristic cooperative relations. Still, Seoul says it remains firmly against Japan's revisionist historical and territorial claims. Looking beyond the Korean peninsula, South Korea also sets out to play a greater role in regional security.
The Yoon Suk-yeol government emphasized a lot about increased responsibility of South Korea because considering its increased national capability, and I totally agree with that. And the world has much more expectations than before, towards South Korea than before. It will coordinate or it will reflect the Yoon government's new policy direction of global people, state and Indo-Pacific strategy.
To address both existing and emerging security threats, the white paper also lays out plans to transform the military with cutting-edge technologies, ranging from artificial intelligence to cyber warfare and space tech. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And over in North Korea, Kim Jong-un made yet another public appearance back on Wednesday, this time at several construction sites. According to North Korea's central news agency, Kim partook in a groundbreaking ceremony for a 10,000 home building project in Pyongyang's Hwasong district. Now, this is the second phase of the regime's plans to build 50,000 new homes in its capital city by the year 2025. Kim also attended a separate groundbreaking ceremony for a large-scale greenhouse farm in the capital city on the same day. Pundits believe Kim's latest engagements reflect his plans to place priority on the country's frail economy and people's livelihoods. The World Health Organization has renewed its concerns over Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, pointing out that the disease remains a threat in quite a number of countries. Our Lee Jae-myung has details.
The World Health Organization has determined that Mpox, previously known as monkeypox, is still considered a public health emergency of international concern. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, speaking to the press on Wednesday, said the decision follows the advice of the UN Health Agency's Emergency Committee. Mpox, which spreads via close contact and causes flu-like symptoms and skin lesions, was declared a global health emergency by the WHO in July 2022. The health agency maintained its alert in November. Its committee of experts in its meeting last week did acknowledge the decline in Mpox infections around the world. The committee said that since the fourth quarter of 2022, the outbreak has subsided globally. In fact, global infections have declined from more than 1,000 new infections a day at their peak in the summer of 2022 to less than 70 a day during the month of January this year. However, the committee took into consideration the fact that the virus still remains a threat in some countries, especially countries in Africa with low testing rates and weak surveillance systems. Dr. Tedros pointed out that more than 30 countries continue to report cases, and the possible underdetection and underreporting of confirmed cases in some regions are concerning. The WHO's Emergency Committee will reconvene in 3 months to reassess the situation. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
Ukraine has accused Russia of flying 6 balloons over its capital city on Wednesday that prompted air raid alerts. According to the city's military, all 6 balloons were shot down by its air defense system. Russia's intentions are being investigated, but for now, Ukrainian officials believe the balloons may have been used to distract and exhaust air defenses. Russia, for its part, has yet to respond to the accusation. On the tech front, Apple is poised to launch its own foldable device. According to NBC, Apple was granted a patent on Tuesday that showed diagrams of a foldable phone or tablet with a wrap-around screen. A wrap-around screen enables users to touch many parts of the device, not simply the main screen, to carry out different functions. Users may be able to control a camera by touching a virtual shutter button or adjust the volume by sliding their finger against the side of the device. Samsung released its foldable smartphone back in 2019, and pundits believe Apple may unveil not a foldable iPhone, but a foldable iPad. The U.S. has Oscars for screen productions, Grammys for music, and the Milken Educator Award for teaching. What's more, one of the recipients this year is a teacher of Korean descent over in Hawaii. Our Song Yoo-jin shares her story.
The Milken Educator Award goes to Esther Kwan!
It was just another day of the school semester for Esther Kwan, assistant principal at the Daniel K. Inouye Elementary School in Wahiawa, Hawaii, until this happened.
I was told that our superintendent was coming to visit our school. So I was the one who sent out email reminders to the whole staff. Hey, we're going to have a welcome assembly for our superintendent. Show up on time, bring some lace to greet him. And I was shocked to find out the whole assembly was for me.
Kwan was surprised to be one of the recipients of the prestigious Milken Educator Award this year. The so-called Oscars for teaching doesn't have a formal nomination or application process. After sourcing candidates through a confidential selection process, winners are selected by the Milken Family Foundation. Born in Seoul, South Korea, Kwan first moved to Canada when she was in elementary school and then to the U.S. She's been living and teaching in Hawaii since 2012. Her international background helps her to empathize with students, most of them from military families.
Oftentimes they move every 2 to 3 years. And even though I'm not from a military family, because I've moved around a lot, I've attended maybe 10 different schools in my lifetime over 3 different countries. I understand what it's like to be the new kid. I understand what it feels like to be nervous about making friends or adjusting to a new place.
She says the best part of being a teacher is her students, who possess limitless potential, and that she gets to be a part of their journey, helping them figure out their strengths and passions so that they can later make positive changes in the world. It's Kwan's first year as assistant principal, so she is still learning. But her new role has already made one thing clear: what kind of educator she wants to become.
I think I want to be someone who really values everyone's work and brings out the best in every single person who's a part of our school community, whether that's kids or adults.
송유진, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Unlike Wednesday, when we had a nice warm-up in the afternoon, temperatures won't rise much from those seen in the morning in the capital region. Highs will be about 4 degrees lower than yesterday, hovering right around the norms, while southern provinces will notice higher afternoon readings. Meanwhile, there is a slim chance that central parts of the country could see a light mix of rain and snow through the afternoon. Mountainous regions on Jeju could see 1 to 5 centimeters of heavy snowfall with a heavy snow advisory issued. Single-digit highs for most parts of the country under cloudy skies today. The air quality will be decent across Korea except in Gwangju, where the dust level remains high all day. So please keep a face mask that can filter out fine dust if you're in Gwangju. Now, there will be a brief warm-up from tomorrow into the weekend. Then rain that was forecast to drop in certain parts of the country will actually fall nationwide this weekend. With that in mind, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe. And those are the headlines at this hour, but we'll return with our panel session in a few minutes, so do stay with us.